Hey there, book people! You are watching Book Vlogging with Jan, and I think I fixed my autofocus problem. I went to Japan! Now, mentally and emotionally, I'm pretty much still there, and what I really need to stop doing is reading Tokyo and Japan travel guides, because all I'm doing is planning another trip there that I know I can't afford on a bookseller salary. I mean, I love being a bookseller. I can't wait to go back to Tokyo. So, because I am thinking Japan, I'm going to feature two books by Japanese artists whose voices impacted my trip. Yes, I know, only two this month. I'm sorry I went on vacation. I spent 7 days in what is clearly a 10-day city, so I had zero time to actually chill out and read. I'm sorry I had so much fun. Here are a few notes on Japanese names. If you're unfamiliar with the Japanese formatting of names, you should know that surname typically comes before given name. Therefore, if you were to hear Mishima Yukio, you would know that Mishima is the family or surname, and Yukio is the given, or what we would call first name, although it's not first in Japan because it comes second. I will not be using this format. I will be using the westernized format of given name followed by surname. I know it's not technically correct, however, my goal is for you to find these books in Western bookstores. Therefore, these authors will be shelved according to the westernized format of their names. Secondly, oftentimes in Japan, when an artist becomes famous enough, he or she will be known only by their given name. Therefore, Natsume Soseki will often just be referred to as Soseki. This is the opposite of what we do in the West, where an author, when famous enough, will just be referred to by their surname. Therefore, Ernest Hemingway is often just referred to as Hemingway and not Ernest, unless you're one of those people who talk about Ernest Hemingway and just call him Ernest, like you have some sort of special relationship with him. If you do this, don't talk to me. I'm not interested in having a conversation about literature with you. Third, I will be using a westernized pronunciation of these names. I'm really sorry. I don't speak Japanese, and again, my goal is for you to be able to communicate with Western booksellers and find these books in Western bookstores. I'm really sorry. So let's jump right into it. These are the two books that I read in preparation for my trip to Japan that profoundly had an impact on the way I view the country and the culture. Akira Kurosawa was hands down one of the most influential directors in cinema history. I will fight you over that! And he filmed some of my absolute favorite films. Stray Dogs, Seven Samurai, Rashomon, Yojimbo, Throne of Blood, High and Low, The Bad Sleep Well. I can keep going if you want me to, is what I'm saying. So prolific. Something like an autobiography, in Kurosawa's own words, details his personal and professional life from his childhood to his commercial success in 1950 with Rashomon. It details his experiences in the Great Kanto earthquake of 1923, his idolization of his older brother and that tragedy of that brother's suicide, his dream of becoming a painter and then abandonment of that dream because art materials were too expensive for his family, his apprenticeship as assistant director and then career as director at Toho Studios, and his experience as a homebound Japanese citizen during World War II, waiting for the imperial order to commit seppuku, rather surrender, and then facing surrender and occupation after the terrifying might of the Western atomic bomb. This is the closest we get to Kurosawa's truth outside of his own films, and he intentionally ends his memoir with the 1950 success of Rashomon. He says, "Film is my true medium. To learn what became of me after Rashomon, look for me in the characters of the films I made. There is nothing that says more about the creator than the work itself." Kurosawa also leaves out some details about his relationship with actor-collaborator Toshiro Mifune, no doubt one of the greatest actor-director collabs in film history. We also unfortunately don't get to see Kurosawa's later tragedies, such as his attempted suicide and his difficulty securing funding for his films in the latter half of the 20th century. But if you do want to read those, I highly recommend Stuart Gilbert IV's The Emperor and the Wolf, The Lives and Films of Akira Kurosawa and Toshiro Mifune. It's out of print now. I managed to get my hands on a copy while it was in print, but if you're looking for it now, expect to pay a lot of money online for a good copy of it.
Whoa, that's a big one.
Kurosawa respects his own and third-party privacy by not divulging these details, and if you're coming to this memoir, you're really not looking for that kind of sordid gossip anyway. Something like an autobiography gets 5 out of 5 book people from me. I highly recommend it. Read it and bask in the triumphs and tragedies of an early Akira Kurosawa, and then watch Dreams for a visual look deep inside of the auteur's mind. Now, my favorite Japanese novelist is not all that well known in the West, which is unfortunate because his main theme is the intersection of Japanese and Western cultures on the ground of religion, but he will be well known soon enough. Director Martin Scorsese has just announced the release of November 2015 for his adaptation of Shusaku Endo's Silence. And I have been waiting for this project for years. I'm not kidding. I heard that he acquired the rights after Gangs of New York. Gangs of New York! That was, what, 5 films ago? Come on, man. Silence follows the path of 2 Jesuit priests as they attempt to enter a sealed-off Japan and convert its citizens to Christianity. Japan has historically remained completely free of Western imperialism. That is not fiction, that is fact. Now, I am not about to get into the without a doubt tumultuous history of Western influence in Japan. I am not an historian. That is our disclaimer here. Christianity was outlawed around the rise of militarism and the shogunate in the 17th century, and all Christian missionaries were expelled from the country. All of them. It was up to the Japanese people to continue the religious faith on their own. And they did so, and they may not have done so if the Japanese were not an ancestor-revering culture. But again, I am not an historian. I only bring this up to emphasize the gap between Christianity in Japan and Christianity in Europe. Endo himself was baptized as a Christian in around the time that he was 11 years old. But it wasn't until he began his graduate studies in Europe that he saw how much of Western culture is built on Christianity. Art, architecture, literature, history. Almost all of it entirely driven by the religious power structure. What was essentially a foreign hobby for his mother, he found to be the default for the art form that he came to study. Endo became obsessed with the state of Japanese Christianity, so much so he even wrote a biography of Jesus, framing him for Japanese non-Christians to understand. Silence represents the anguish rather than the joy of faith, the problems of God within man, martyrdom and mercy, the resiliency of custom, and the ultimate failure of 2 major cultures meeting on a religious stage when both of which are so deeply unwilling to yield. These themes permeate nearly all of Endo's works, including the aforementioned Life of Jesus and the newest translation of one of his later novels, Kiku's Prayer. Silence gets 4 out of 5 book people, and I encourage you to read it if you are into deeply psychological stories of faith, identity, and culture. Both Shusaku Endo and Akira Kurosawa are the most important Japanese voices in my world, and I'm aware that both of them are highly influenced by Western thought, and maybe that's what appeals to me. But it's not the only thing that appeals to me. I urge you to read Akira Kurosawa's something like an autobiography if you are a fan of his films. If you're not a fan of his films or you don't know what his films are, I don't really know what to say to you. Except, why are you here? Who are you? Who let you in here? And I encourage you to read Silence before the film comes out next year. That's a whole year you get to read this book. Just go for it. Do it now. Director Martin Scorsese has had controversy in the past with religious themes in his films, and Silence is in no way exempt from this controversy. But if you are a person who can appreciate the individual conflicts of faith that a person can experience, as Scorsese surely can, then you'll probably enjoy it. I feel really bad about leaving you with only 2 reviews this month. So I am going to put a list of other Japanese writers that I really love but I didn't have time to get to this month. I'm going to put it in front of my face. I'm really sorry. I had so much fun eating Japanese food and singing karaoke and shopping and museuming it up and looking at robots and giant Gundam and just having the time of my life. Guys, just can't even. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thanks to these people for these things. If you'd like to recommend a book or topic, you can go ahead and leave a comment on any and all of my videos. I read them all, I promise. If you enjoyed what you saw, go ahead and click a like. You can even share it with your friends, your enemies. That'd be cool of you. Don't forget to check out my previous videos. Binge watching is a thing that people do now, so you don't even have to feel guilty about it. Once again, thank you for watching from me and Book People, Texas's largest and Austin's #1 independent bookstore.